Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Lindsey Report. And now, Hal Lindsey.
Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Hal Lindsey Report. I believe one of the most telling signs of the approaching end of this age is the speed with which events and conditions are falling into place. When I began to study Bible prophecy in earnest in the mid-50s, we got excited when we saw identifiable prophetic movements every decade or so. And we were right to do so because before the mid part of the 20th century, discernible developments in prophecy occurred over the course of centuries. Today, those developments are occurring every few months, even weeks. At the beginning of each Hal Lindsey Report, our announcer says, "Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines." This week's headlines perfectly illustrate the truth of that statement. From Washington and Rome, two stories capture the essence of how prophecy is developing before our eyes. Here in America, we're once again engaged in a renewed national discussion about a universal tracking and regulatory identification system. The current form of that tracking system would be a national ID card, which every American would be required to possess. Ostensibly, this national ID would be used to assist immigration reform. It would help employers determine which job applicants are in the country legally and are therefore qualified for legal employment. Eventually, I'm sure all Americans will be required to possess the trackable national ID in order to hold a job or keep the one you've got. Is this beginning to sound familiar? This plan has been promoted before and failed during the Bush administration. In the same way, during the debate over the provisions of Obamacare, Democrats in both houses of Congress attempted to require that patients utilizing that plan have an RFID chip implanted. That would allow the government to track each patient's medical history and provide for better management of healthcare resources. Less well known, though, was the stipulation that the chips would also allow the government access to those patients' banking and financial records. The ominous aspect of this plan is that we all know that the ultimate goal of the current government is universal health care. Now that means that everyone's health care will eventually be provided by the government. Therefore, the bureaucrats will need to be able to track and manage everyone's medical and financial dossiers. So if you're not in the system, that means you don't have the RFID chip implanted in your body. Then you cannot get medical care. Though that part of Obamacare was defeated in the Congress, with liberal legislation, you can always count on one thing. They will bring it around again and again until it finally wears people out and becomes law, either by legislation or, as the current policy is, executive order. Now from Rome. I've discussed Pope Benedict's resignation extensively over the last 3 weeks. I shared with you the intriguing extra-biblical prophecy known as St. Malachi's Prophecy of the Popes. In that document, written in 1139 and first published in 1595 AD, Bishop Malachi predicts the last 112 popes of the Roman Catholic Church, beginning with Celestine II and concluding with, you guessed it, the Pope that is about to be elected by the College of Cardinals next month. I won't go into details of the prophecy again this week, but suffice it to say that Malachi's predictions seem to suggest that the next Pope, number 112 in his lineup, will be from geographical portions of the Roman Empire Phase II, since he will be called Peter the Roman. He will lead the church through many tribulations and eventually see it and Rome destroyed. In previous programs, I've shown you how the Apostle John in the book of Revelation prophesied that the leader of the coming world religious system based in Rome would be instrumental in the rise of the Antichrist and the false prophet. In other words, this future world religious leader will be the key figure to pave the way for the emergence of the Antichrist from the people of the revived Roman Empire. If St. Malachi's prophecy is accurate, and he's been dead on thus far, then the next pope may very well be the world religious leader that John foretold. Now, what makes all of this even more interesting is that I've reported on the papal prophecy 3 times over the last 4 years. In each case, I've noted that Pope Benedict, number 111 in the lineup, was in his mid-80s. Of course, the implication was that at his age, his papacy would only last a few more years, and then number 112 would arrive. Little did I consider the fact that Benedict might abruptly decide to abdicate his papal throne. Popes just don't do that. They die in office. The last time one stepped down was more than 600 years ago. And if that's not enough to get you excited about the times in which we live, consider what we're learning this week. It now appears that we are witnessing a massive power struggle in the hierarchy of the Vatican. The Pope originally announced that he's stepping down because he lacked the physical and mental strength to fully execute the functions of his office. Since then, reports have emerged to indicate that there's a titanic struggle taking place for control of the Roman Catholic Church. The Italian media is also reporting the existence of an extensive and shadowy homosexual lobby that has taken root in the Vatican's administration. We know that there has been scandal in the Catholic banking system that required the replacement of certain high officials and the reassignment of others. In fact, a recent investigation of these scandals conducted by 3 cardinals appointed by Pope Benedict has produced a top-secret report that some observers say contributed to the Pope's decision to retire. The Vatican has accused the Italian media of exposing all of this in recent days in order to influence foreign cardinals who will be coming to Rome for the conclave. The important point for us, though, is that it happens so quickly, and obviously there are forces working behind the scenes to make it occur. Another aspect of the accelerated unfolding of this drama is the growing sense that something is amiss at the Vatican. Of course, many non-Catholics have always thought this to be the case. However, the point is that even those who give the Vatican the benefit of the doubt are beginning to sense that human politics and guile are playing a greater role in these events than ever thought before. That would seem to make it all the more possible to believe that the next pope, if Malachi's predictions are accurate, could be the one that facilitates the predicted revival of the old Roman Empire and enables the platform for the Antichrist and the false prophet to rise to global power. Now, according to Revelation chapter 17, he will also rule at the time of the destruction of the false Roman church system. Symbolically, it's known as the Whore of Babylon from Revelation 17. In this same chapter, the Antichrist and the false prophet will come to hate the religious system that helped them come to power and will utterly destroy it along with the city of the 7 hills from which it reigned over the kings of the earth. We call it Rome. Folks, we may literally be standing at the threshold of those events. That's why I want to revisit a few minutes of a program I presented in 2010 in which I described in specific detail the 2 antichrists that I believe are standing in the wings right now, ready to make their appearance. There are in the Bible prophecies about two personalities that are going to dominate the world in the final 7 years just before the end of history as we know it and the second coming of Christ. These two personalities are the most important men to know about right now, because I believe the conditions for their unveiling are growing very close. Now, in Revelation chapter 13, we have these two personalities introduced. The first one is in Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 10. Now, this first person comes out of the sea. And in the imagery and the symbolism of the book of Revelation, which is also used in the rest of the Bible, a restless, turbulent sea is a picture of the nations of the world in unrest and conflict. Well, out of this conflict of the nations of the world arises this one that Revelation 13 calls the beast. But he is a world ruler who's going to be unveiled that will come out of the remnants of the old Roman Empire and culture. It says that he's going to come out of the final form of the successive world empires the Bible predicted would come, and certainly have come and fallen as they were predicted. Now, this man is going to receive a mortal head wound. And the word means a fatal head wound. And the man is going to be miraculously raised up from that head wound. And it is this miraculous raising to life again that's going to give him immediate world prominence on a scale never before seen. Now, this man is a political man who's religious. And he will come to Rome, and out of Rome, he's going to rule. Now, I call this man the Roman Antichrist. The second personality is introduced in Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 through 18. This second person works hand in hand with the first. This second person says rises out of the land. It's translated earth, but tesges in this context means the land, and it's in contrast with the sea. So as the other one rose out of the sea, this one rises out of the land, and in context this refers to the land of Israel. And there are other prophecies which confirm that this man will be an Israelite. This man will rise and begin to show the same kind of miraculous powers that are given to the first Antichrist. And he is going to use those great satanically inspired powers to bring attention to the first Antichrist. But one of the most important things about his job, and one that fits right in with the things we studied last week, is the fact that he is going to cause all people to worship an image of the Roman Antichrist. And he requires that everyone in the world worship him. And to prove that they are a follower of him, he introduces an economic control that is ingenious. He requires every person on earth to show their allegiance to this Antichrist by receiving a mark that will enable them to buy and sell. Now let me read that particular part of that prophecy to you and show you exactly what this means. In